we see that we went through the glucose can now get into the cell. Now once that glucose gets into the cell, and if it's a heart cell, a brain cell, a muscle cell, it's going to go into the energy pathways. To get into the energy pathways, it's got to get into the mitochondria. The mitochondria is where all the energy is created. Now there's 22 steps in that energy pathway, from glycolysis to the Krebs cycle to the electron transport cycle. There's 22 steps. What's interesting is, out of those 22 steps, 12 of those steps need magnesium. The importance of magnesium, we're going to keep coming back to magnesium because that's an intracellular ion that is critical for creating energy. So understanding, we also need not just magnesium. We've heard that the bees give you energy. Well, the bees are part of that, part of the whole energy cycle in the mitochondria. We need the bees, we need CoQ10, and we need that little trace mineral, manganese, to really produce the energy in the electron transport chain. Now this list is not exhaustive by any means. There's other players, other nutrients, but I'm just pointing out some of the obvious mineral deficiencies that we have that are really causing our oxidation rate to go slow. And we start to see these on hair tissue analysis where the oxidation rate is slow, which is your premature aging. So understanding how we're creating energy through the mitochondria, that glucose comes into the mitochondria, and then in the mitochondria it goes through those 22 steps. Now, the byproducts of metabolism of a carbohydrate, of a glucose unit, that glucose is, once it gets in the mitochondria, it has some end products. One of those is CO2, carbon dioxide and water. Now that carbon dioxide just can't be dumped into the blood because carbon dioxide is a poison to the blood. So the body needs to take that CO2 in that water molecule and convert it into carbolic acid. That carbolic acid can then be properly transported to the blood, to the lungs, to be expired out, or through the kidneys to be released through the urine. Now, the enzyme to make that carbolic acid is zinc deficient. Coming back to zinc, a very, very important mineral. So if we have zinc deficiencies, we're going to have trouble in any one of the 300 enzymatic functions that zinc does. So we're kind of sticking with the digestive process for a moment here. And from the mouth to anus, your body is lined with zinc-like fingers. That zinc is really, it's a immune enhancer to ward off the viruses. It's again involved in making the hydrochloric acid. It has many, many enzymatic functions in digestion. So we got to understand that we lose 85% of the zinc daily through the intestines. So if we're not coming in with zinc and we keep depleting it, we're going to have a zinc deficiency, and we're going to pay the price heavily if we do have a zinc deficiency. So on this blood sugar kind of course we're going on, that glucose mostly will be, taken into the cells to produce energy, but in actuality, 2/3 of the glucose in the blood will be uptaken by the liver. The liver is going to take those glucose molecules into the liver, and in the liver, the glucose will be stored as glycogen. So now the body has a reserve of energy. Now, if we need to call on that glycogen, there's a process called gluconeogenesis, which is the formation of glucose. Now, gluconeogenesis needs vitamin B6, it needs magnesium, and again, it needs zinc. Zinc and magnesium are two of the most important intracellular ions in the body, and we have a country deficient in these two amazing minerals. Now, how come medicine misses the magnesium deficiency? Because there's a concentration gradient. Magnesium, like I said, is intracellular. It belongs in the cell. And so you have 1 ion of magnesium in the blood compared to 700 ions in a healthy individual. Healthy, energetic individual will have 700 ions in the cell to 1 ion in the blood. So when they take your blood, no wonder why they never detect a magnesium deficiency. And remember, magnesium is so important, and we see that in a lot of cardiac conditions, that heart attack, that's a magnesium deficiency. Calcium contracts, magnesium relaxes. Whether it's a skeletal muscle, a heart muscle, or smooth muscle, doesn't matter. Calcium, magnesium is needed for the contraction of any muscle. And so when we start to run low on the magnesium, because it's gone under the radar in medical circles because they didn't run the right test, they didn't do a tissue biopsy, and if they do a magnesium RBC test, that test is a red blood cell. Well, red blood cells don't have mitochondria. So most of the magnesium is in the mitochondria. So it's kind of a crazy situation in which we're trying to figure out why we have a health crisis, and we're not looking at the basics. We're not looking at the fundamentals, which is the minerals. And again, the minerals from the soils, from the food choices, to how we're assimilating and digesting, and to how we're absorbing this are key factors in how healthy or unhealthy we will be. So, coming back to my story on the liver, we talked about we needed the B6, the magnesium and the zinc to actually break down the sugar so that sugar can get to where it needs to go. Maybe it'll be the brain, maybe it'll be the muscle, whatever trillion cell it needs to go to, it will go to. But we have to understand the thyroid-adrenal connection into this equation, because you need the hormone. There's 12 hormones that your adrenals make. One of them is cortisol. Cortisol sends a signal to the liver to release the glucose. And when it releases the glucose, then the glucose will get into the blood to go where it needs to go. Hopefully that made sense. Now, we also have to understand the thyroid connection to this. So the cortisol is going to go to the liver to release the sugar. Now, to actually burn the sugar, you need thyroid hormone. And so that thyroid hormone is actually kind of the spark that is lighting the fuel, lighting the sugar, so we can utilize it and burn it. Because you need thyroid hormone in every cell in your body. So we're not getting into the discussion of thyroid, we're keeping on the theme of blood sugar. So when my patients come to me and we want to analyze, why they have, a whole host of diseases, from the weight gain, from the brain fog, to the insulin. And when you look at the insulin, you got to look at the estrogen, and we have this estrogen dominant thing, and we have these aches and pains, and we have these infections. We got to start connecting all these loose ends and try to, connect the dots, so to speak. And so part of the question with the blood sugar is, how do we analyze it? Well, with a hair tissue biopsy, we look at the calcium-magnesium ratio, which should be a 7-to-1. The higher the calcium to magnesium ratio goes, the more of a trend you are for insulin dysregulation, diabetes, prediabetes, and all that stuff. The higher the number, the more you'll have diabetes. And so we start to see these trends before someone is actually diagnosed with full-fledged type 2 diabetes. When we see the blood sugar ratio at a 10-to-1, we know that's a trend towards diabetes. Once that number goes above a 13-to-1 ratio, that is your diabetes. And we could really set the stage a little bit better with the right nutrients, with the right diet, so we can come in with the fix. We can come in with real organic solutions to real problems, to really understand how important it is to balance out the minerals and the mineral ratios so we can have a fighting chance of restoring health without drugs, without surgery, without all this nonsense that they're throwing at us, when nature has given us everything under the sun to fix our own physiology. But again, there has to be a willingness to do this. There has to be, I want to eat better. I want to choose healthier foods. I want to take mineral supplements. I want to look at my mineral ratios. And once we start to do that, then we really have a chance of overcoming this blood sugar dysregulation problem that really is the plague of our day, the epidemic of our country. Blood sugar, insulin dysregulation. I hope this little video was helpful in my explanation of explaining the plague of our day. And I look forward to seeing you coming to my workshop so we can get more into deeper conversations and discussions on a lot of the issues plaguing our country. And again, when we're talking about blood sugar, we got to talk about the liver, we got to talk about insulin, the pancreas, we got to talk about hydrochloric acid, we got to talk about the adrenals, and we got to talk about the thyroid. And we also have to talk about anemia too, because the blood is really moving everything, and if we have anemia, we have to look at that as well. And those are some of the themes and subjects we'll be talking about at my upcoming workshops. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for watching.